Have you ever felt that inexplicable connection between you and someone over calls, maybe text messages, chats, only to feel like there's something off when you finally meet them? In this video, I'm going to give you 3 reasons why she's changed towards you after you first met. Stay tuned. Jessica here. Let me share a personal story. So a couple of years ago, when phones did not have the ability to, take video or do much more than just talking and texting, I met this guy that I thought was absolutely amazing. I fell in love with his voice. We had some really good conversations, and to be honest, I fell in love with him. I remember at the time, because we didn't have video calls, and before we first met, I would ask him to describe what he looked like because I was curious to see if his voice matched his looks, right? And he would go on to tell me, well, he was 6 feet tall, had chocolatey dark skin, had slanted eyes. I had slanted eyes. It kind of looked like mine. So I was envisioning this guy in my mind. Let me just put it that way. Fast forward, a couple of months went by, and then we finally decided he would come over to visit me at home. So this is me, because at the time there was no GPS or anything like that. So I told him where I lived. I had to go meet him by the roadside and then walk him back home to where my house was located. Got to the roadside and I called him. I was like, hey, you said you were here. I don't see you. He's like, I'm here. Where are you? I said, I'm standing on the other side of the road. And I said, what color of shirt are you wearing? He says, a green shirt. So I'm looking around, green shirt. Okay, I see this guy, but in my mind, from what, he described to me on the phone that he looked like, that couldn't have been him. So like I look at him, nah, and then I keep looking, green shirt, green shirt, green shirt. And then he's like, oh, hey, you're looking at me right now. And I'm like, oh, hey. My heart sank. Now, let me just say that because I wanted to be polite, I still entertained him. I was young. I took him home. We had a decent chat, a decent time together. And then after that, he left. And when he left, to be honest, I could not bring myself to continuing the relationship as it was. There was just something about, the way he looked that was completely different. I had envisioned, some other kind of guy in my mind, and he was just completely not that person. So despite the fact that, we had built some serious chemistry on the phone, I'd fallen in love with him and his voice. When I didn't meet him, I just knew that this was not the guy for me. Lame? Maybe. Because now I'm older, I'm wiser, and I know that it's not really about how people look. But at the time, it seemed to make sense to me. My young mind just couldn't compare or couldn't fathom the person that showed up that day and the guy that I had spoken to on the phone and fallen in love with. Needless to say, the relationship went down south after that. Now, this was a guy that I used to speak to after midnight till like 3 a.m. regularly, because of course free night calls, and that was the only time I knew I could stay on the phone for so long without racking up a bill. It went from speaking every night to me not answering his calls or answering it like once a week and just not engaging in the conversation at all. Where am I heading with this story? I'm just telling this story because I want you to know that this occurrence is pretty common. It's actually more common than you realize. And so if you're a guy watching this video and you find yourself in that situation, I've got a couple of tips and things I'd like you to ponder on. Meeting someone in person after connecting online is a big leap, okay? It's a whole new dynamic. And if you ask me, this is what you really need to know when it comes to these things. First, let me get the big elephant in the room out the door, okay? The first one I would highlight today is the issue of digital versus reality. Now, online, we can craft our responses. We can choose our best photos. We can showcase our best selves. In real life, there are no backspaces and there are no filters. I mean, these differences can sometimes be really jarring, right? When we're online, we have the ability to control how we present ourselves. We can choose what photos to post, what to say in our profiles, and how to interact with others. This can be a great way to connect with people and to share our lives with them. But as you know, it can also lead to us creating a false version of ourselves. We may post only the best photos of ourselves or only share the positive aspects of our lives. And this creates a disconnect between our online and offline personas. In reality, we all are imperfect, right? We make mistakes, we have bad days, we don't always look our best, and the chemistry may be completely missing in this case as well. And it's part of being human. One possibility is that you were simply imagining a connection that wasn't really there. When you're talking to someone online, it's easier to project your own thoughts and feelings onto them and create this false sense of intimacy. Maybe that's how the woman felt, right? And when you finally meet in person, you may find that the reality doesn't match up to your expectations. Maybe like me and in my story. Maybe you chewed so loudly and opened your mouth so wide when you shared a meal. Maybe you had bad breath. When a woman's expectations are raised so high, it gets easy to be disappointed by the small stuff. She could be turned off by just about anything, and it won't be your fault. Now, before you block this girl based on what I've just said because you feel like the love is unrequited, let's look at other possibilities. I've got two more to share. The second may be that you may have met Nervous Nancy. Why do I call her that? Well, the first meeting for a lot of women can be nerve-wracking. She might be feeling the pressure to live up to a persona that she's created online, or maybe she's just a shy person in real life. It's also possible that she's not being honest with you about who she is. Maybe now that she's met you, she probably knows you're out of her league and she'll rather just let herself down slowly before you do, and to avoid embarrassment down the line. Perhaps she thought you saw through her. Or perhaps she wasn't a fan of the chosen location that you guys even decided to meet. I mean, think about it this way. Maybe she's a reserved kind of person, yet you decided to have your first meeting at the club. Now, nothing wrong with that if that's your jam, but it could create a completely different impression of who you are. The environment can also influence someone's behavior more than you realize. It could be a gamut of things, really. I mean, my take is, as opposed to the personal example that I gave earlier in the video, if what she's feeling is merely nervousness and the feeling has changed how she interacts with you after your first meeting, you still have a chance with her, because all you need to do is to really assure her that, look, I'm going to be there for you through it all and you have nothing to worry about. Prove it to her over time and she'll loosen up and be more accommodating of you. Now let's talk about personal battles, which is the third and the last one. Everyone has battles that they're fighting. Maybe she had a rough day, you met her on a bad day, is going through something personal, I don't know. It's important to be empathetic, right? And not to jump to conclusions. Before you start overthinking, remember, every individual is unique and every meeting is different. So instead of dissecting the change, focus on understanding and building that in-person rapport. Genuine connections? I mean, if you ask me, they're worth every effort. So it's definitely worth your time and effort to try and get that locked. Let's wrap up this video. So if you've ever experienced this, it's important to remember that it's not personal, right? It's just one of those things that happens sometimes. There's no need to feel like you did anything wrong or that you're not good enough, right? Just move on, find someone else who will connect with you better if you feel like maybe she was disappointed or things have changed since you met. If you're concerned about her behavior and you want to work at solving it, then it's best to actually talk to her about it. Ask her how she's feeling, try to understand what's going on, be patient, be understanding, and all that fun stuff. Give her the time and space that she needs if that's what she's asking for, right? It's pretty straightforward. Thank you very much for watching today's video. I mean, if you found it helpful, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more insightful content. I'll catch you in the next one. My name is Jessica. Cheers.